Welcome to Small Business Breakthroughs, presented by the Ohio Small Business Development Center in partnership with the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center. My name is Mike Bowers. I'm the District Director for the SBDC at Columbus State, and we are excited to bring today's guest to you. And what we're looking for is the opportunity for you to basically hear from an established, successful entrepreneur, and hopefully we can pick up some tips and tricks and things that we can use to help build our businesses. Before we get with our guest, I want to introduce Chaz Frutel. He is the manager of the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center, the Small Business Development Center. We've been working with the DEC for, I don't know, I say a number of years. That probably doesn't do it justice. But we're excited for the opportunity to continue to work with the DEC and be part of this program with the DEC. So, Chaz?
Well, Mike, thank you so much. And I think we're in 13 years now that SBDC and the DEC have been in partnership to provide services to local entrepreneurs, people that are trying to get businesses started and grow, as well as providing office space on cubicles and whatnot and drop in for folks that are interested as well. So it's been a pleasure working with you and the SBDC team for that many years, and it's just been great to see the number of businesses that we've been mutually able to assist over that time. It's just the numbers are staggering, and add what you guys do and we do even away from each other, and it's pretty amazing. But very excited for this program. The interesting part is you and Matt are both at the DEC, the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center, and I'm not today. So so you guys are being filmed from the DEC, and I'm away. So that's interesting. But anyway, for all those that are attending today, we really appreciate you joining this event. If there's anything that we can do to help you at the DEC by getting connected to other organizations or significant people that might be able to help you with your business or provide you with some guidance or space, we'd love to talk to you and see if there's some way we might be able to help you come alongside and help your business grow. Like I said, that Mike and SBDC maintain an office at the DEC, so we're always happy to have them there and be able to serve any businesses that are at the DEC or locally that might want to come in and schedule an appointment. And then Matt Byrne, your guest speaker today, has been a long time member of the DEC community and just an outstanding employer, and you're going to learn some great things from him today. So thank you so much for the intro, Mike, and I look forward to hearing the session today.
Great. Thanks a lot, Chaz. Again, we appreciate the opportunity to partner with the DEC, and like I said, it's been a great partnership, and I think that the DEC is a great environment for entrepreneurs. There's a variety of different options here at the DEC. You know, you can, if you need office space, this is a great opportunity. But as Chaz said, you know, when he mentioned the DEC community, I mean, it's a lot of entrepreneurial experience, a lot of entrepreneurial excitement. And, you know, if you're working from home and you want to just get out periodically or something like that, they have options for that too. So a lot of things, and I would encourage you to get a hold of Chaz if you want to check out the DEC or get a little tour or come and continue to participate in some of the programming and things that we have going on here at the DEC. So, yeah. So let's move on. I want to move on to the program. What I want to encourage you to do is, if you have questions, go ahead and put those in the chat. And Bruce Walters from our SBDC team and myself will be monitoring the chat. We will endeavor to get those questions answered. And also, I'd encourage you to go ahead and put your information in the chat. If you have you know, if you've got a business or you've got something going on, feel free to put your information, your contact in there, because not only is this about, okay, we're gonna talk and we're gonna, you know, share some information. You know, even though it's virtual, it's still an opportunity to be to network and to connect. And so I'd encourage you to go ahead and put that kind of information in. So I want to bring our guest, Matt Byrne. He is the founder of the Spiralight Group Benefits. And I like to think of Matt as a serial entrepreneur, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And, you know, Chaz mentioned that we are both at the deck. If you look up here and you see these lights in the back window, that light there, that's where Matt is. So we're actually across the hall from each other. So we are excited to have you on, Matt, and you know, thanks for participating. And why don't we go ahead? Maybe you can kind of share a little bit about yourself and what you've been into.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here and to be able to share my story. First of all, as Michael had mentioned, and just to kind of reiterate that, questions, feel free to put those in the chat, and Michael will curate those and see, you know, kind of try to get those questions to me. And I always want, you know, there's no stupid questions. You know, if you're feeling like, hey, I'm not sure I should be asking that, or that makes me look, I promise you half the people listening probably want an answer to the same question you have. So feel free to ask whatever you need. And but my story is, gosh, I guess we do have an hour. I can go way back, but it was funny. This friend of mine was golfing this weekend at the Ohio State University golf course. They were going to do the gray course, and the gray course, when I was like 7 or 8 years old, I used to sell lemonade on the 4th hole of the OSU golf course gray course. And I said, so yeah, when you go by the 4th hole, think of me. And my mom would drop me off with these big jugs of lemonade, 2 of them. You know, I used to dive in the creeks and the rivers and lakes to try to fish golf balls out. I'd clean them up, and I'd sell lemonade and golf balls back to the golfers. And it was like 1978 or something, and I was charging 75 cents for lemonade back then, and they would say, man, that's a lot of money for lemonade. And I was like, well, you just passed the last water fountain, and the next one's not for another 4 holes. So you know, feel free to not buy my lemonade from a 9-year-old. But you know, that was really, I always had the entrepreneurial bug. I always was shoveling driveways and delivering newspapers and going to the pharmacy and buying candy. I'm the youngest of 7 children, so I would bring the candy home and then sell it as a markup to my brothers and sisters. But my first legitimate business was I had a chemical and engineering laboratory that I started in 1990, and we were over by the Anthony Thomas Candy Factory over on the west side near Roberts Road, and ended up selling that company to the world's largest testing organization. They're a company called Intertech, and they traded on the London Stock Exchange. And so they bought that company from me in 1999 at a 16 times multiple of my profit, which was pretty good, because usually 5 to 7 times multiple of your profit is pretty customary. And so to get, you know, more than double that was pretty good. And we can unpack that experience and kind of how I started that, you know, how I sold that, and get into some of the challenges I faced through that business. But my next business was a marketing consulting company I founded in 2002. You know, basically everything from websites to videography to trade show booths, just helping companies build out their marketing messages and you know, do the design of the things that would surround that. That was a tough business. That one was really hard to get a footing. And you know, so I one of my favorite things to share is that I've never had a resume. I've never been on a job interview, and every paycheck I've ever taken since I graduated college, I wrote in my own hand and signed myself. And sometimes those paychecks had a number with lots of zeros after them, and sometimes those paychecks had just a 0 on them, many times. And this marketing consulting company was one of those. It was fun and it was interesting. And after I sold the laboratory, I just wanted to do something fun, something engaging, something I thought would be entertaining. And the marketing consulting company was the way I went. But that one didn't do so great. But in 2008, I founded the current company. Basically, we do employee benefits and HR consulting services, helping small employers find talent, grow their talent, engage their talent, and you do that through a host of ways. But employee benefits like health insurance, disability insurance, but also, you know, culture and people policies and things of that nature. So that business I started in 2008, went without a paycheck in the early lean years of that, but successfully sold that business in December of 2020. to a large outfit out of Atlanta, a venture capital firm out of Atlanta acquired me. I'm still in kind of what we call the earn-out. That's the period after you've sold, but you're still making sure that, you know, what you sold them is in good health and you're nurturing the clients to the other side. So that's a quick snapshot of my journey as an entrepreneur. So.
Great. Well, I appreciate that. And I think that's a great, you know, description of when we talk about serial entrepreneurs. I mean, it's somebody who, you know, they start the business, they kind of work the business, they build the business, and then, you know, they have the opportunity to move on to other businesses and things of that nature. So let's start out, let's kind of go back to the beginning. And for the folks that are here, I mean, what do you think some of the critical things that it's important for founders to know, whether that be at the very early stage or maybe somebody who's maybe been in business a while? What are some of those things that are important in building businesses that they may not know that you've experienced?
Yeah, I think, you know, God, I could, we'll just have to start talking and see what comes out. But, you know, early stage, I think it's really just about confidence and commitment. You know, the confidence that, you know, running your own business is actually really fun, really easy. It's not as hard as everyone makes it out to be. I think that, you know, believe me, I have no great wisdom or IQ that makes me uniquely qualified to run my own business. But, you know, it takes the confidence just to say, hey, listen, I can do this and I can make this work. And then the second thing is the commitment. You know, one thing that you will give a lot of is sweat equity and hard work. It's kind of easy in that nothing that you're going to do is going to be that you won't be able to handle. It's not like it's so challenging and so complex and so difficult that you can't figure it out. You can, but you know, you got to put in the time and really that work ethic and that commitment to making sure that you're, you know, pursuing it with everything you got is really important. You know, with the gig economy, there's, you know, a lot of people talk about, you know, their day job and then the side hustle and all this stuff. You know, that may be a formula that works for some people. I can't see that through the lens in which I look back on my career. I can't imagine not being 120% committed and invested to whatever business I was trying to get going. I can't imagine, you know, being a 50% of my time trying to build a small business. But there are certain ones that's possible with the digital age, and the world is flat, and there's a lot of opportunities for people to kind of slowly bring on that business and then get to a point where they can leap off into a full-time gig. I see that as a possibility, but for me, that was never really the formula. I needed to be more committed and invested. As you evolve and develop into a more mature business, and, you know, that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but, you know, as you've been in the business for a handful of years, you know, your needs start changing. And really, I think it becomes the piece of advice there is the business owner needs to have the trust and faith to make sure that they're bringing on the talented people, they have a vision, and they can kind of compel and inspire people to come follow and be a part of their team. But more importantly, even than that, is being able to delegate and give those people, you know, the trust and support that they need to really contribute and help your organization. If you want to control everything, if you want to micromanage everything, if you want to be in charge of everything, you're in for a really long road. So the talent switches from being able to do everything and carry the organization on your back. As you get a little bit further down the field, what you realize is that you need to start doing the opposite of that. You need to start delegating, getting good people, building systems, processes, business plans, things that really kind of map out where you're going. So those are kind of the two main points I would make as an early business or one that's, you know, trying to go to the next level.
Is there a point in the business development and the business growth from, hey, I'm starting to, you know, I have a growth business now, that delegation piece becomes even more important? Do you see kind of just a transition to the delegation, or, you know, is it a lot you, and then, okay, now we're going to, you know, I can see we're taking the next step?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, I don't know how to answer that other than I think it would become painfully obvious, because what happens is that you start having a certain amount of success, and you start, you know, you've tested the market, you've beta tested different ideas, you try to penetrate different sectors or layers of your market, you come up with a new product and another product, and you get so the success kind of signals to you that this is going really well. And so as you're growing and succeeding and having all this success, what you realize is that there aren't enough hours in the day where you could possibly do it yourself. And, at the beginning, your employees are just a set of hands at some level. You're like, hey, you know what's going on. You've got the vision. You've mapped out what you guys are trying to accomplish. And you're really just trying to get some hands to shovel dirt for you. But then very quickly, as that success continues for any length of time, you realize that, you need managers and people to help build systems and to inspire the next layer of employee to raise their game so that they too can be a leader. So it becomes, leading yourself to then leading others. But I really think that maybe the signal that you might be there is when you realize you have so much opportunity, you can't capture it all, or that your quality of life is so bad because you're underwater trying to do everything yourself. Those two things would be a good signal that it's time to get good people or get better people. You needed people who aren't just a set of hands, but a set of minds and a set of new leaders that you're going to try to cultivate and bring along for the ride.
One of the things when you were talking about your business journey that I found to be interesting is that, you mentioned the initial business, which, successfully exited. You obviously mentioned the Spiralight Group, which you've successfully exited. And I think a lot of people would say those are my two experiences. But you also then talked about the marketing services firm, which, you mentioned, was a lot more work. It wasn't quite, maybe as successful as the others. What did you learn from that business that you took into the Spiralight Group?
So the first business was called Integral Sciences, just the laboratory. The second business was called Spiralight Media Group. And then because I had a tax ID and a legal entity that wasn't doing well, and I didn't want to reinvest in building it, I just changed the doing business as. But so Spiralight actually was the marketing firm, then turned into the benefits and consulting. What did I learn? Yeah, that's a good question. I partnered with I'm obviously not a web designer or a graphic designer. I partnered with somebody who was, and I think getting the right partnerships, getting the right people, that was a lesson that maybe I would have. Hold on, my computer's trying to restart me, so I'm using that idea. So I think it's really about getting the right people and the right partnerships. Are you properly funded? Have you researched your target market in a way that you're resonating with them, you're connecting with them? Owning a marketing company was kind of ironic because what I really did is I learned about marketing and connecting with your clients in a pretty important way. But also, creating the right partnerships and, not abdicating your vision and your authority to that partner, but making sure that partner is there to support the journey that you're on, whether it be they'll collaborate with you to go on that journey with you, or that they'll provide a key piece of the puzzle to help, accomplish your goals as an organization. So that's what pops into my mind about. I'm sure there's other lessons of failure that I could draw from that experience, but those are the big ones.
When you talk about partnership, and that's something that I think is important, and a lot of times, especially for, more traditional businesses and for earlier stage businesses and for folks that are building, I like to talk about building a team. So you have this internal team where maybe you're bringing in employees and, people that work for you, or you have partners or something like that. But this external team, when you talk about partners, I think that's really important. And I think it's important for, the folks that are listening to this that, are earlier in their journey, that are kind of building this out. Can you talk a little bit more about building these external teams? Because they don't have to be people that are on the payroll. I mean, you could be all the way from, hey, you got a great attorney, you've got great partners, you're part of the deck community, whatever that is, plus having these partners that are helping you propel the business.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of resources that entrepreneurs, forget to or fail to tap into or just aren't aware of. But, as you had said, Mike, I'll just speak about the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center. I came to the deck, maybe Chaz would know, but probably 7, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, perhaps. But it's just a great, the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center and places like that are really important, because not only do you have a set of potential clients that might be find your services of value, but you also have fellow entrepreneurs who are on a similar journey, and you can, learn from each other and share ideas with each other, and that's really valuable. And then you have a series of partners and these external assets that Mike's referring to, whether it be a lawyer or a CPA or a business owner and an aligned part of your strategy and their strategy might overlap, and you can do joint ventures and collaborations. Another place where the external partnerships where I found some success is things Masterminds, and there's different organizations and ways that you can kind of plug in, partner, and cross support each other. And the deck has a lot of those things informally and some more formally, but there's a lot of organizations out there that kind of are designed to help you build that de facto board of directors. You can have a formal board of directors, you can have these informal, loosely connected people that you lean on for advice, people who have been down the road, people who can who have already paid the tuition to success, and they've already made the mistake you're about to make and can quickly help you avoid it. And I provide that role to some people, and some people I look to them to help me in those ways, because you're always learning, you're always growing, and the journey never ends. Just your place on the map changes from time to time. You always need good people to surround yourself with, and the deck does a good job of that. Mastermind groups and these collaboration, fellow business owners collaborating, and is really, really valuable and important.
So let's kind of stick with that a little bit, because I want to talk a little bit about some of the resources that you took advantage of, since the beginning, since 90, growing businesses and things of that nature. Because again, I think that obviously the Small Business Development Center, we do a lot of work with a lot of the folks that are obviously on here as attendees. We provide advising services. These services are free of charge to the user. But I think a lot of times the folks that, again, are slugging it out day to day, they don't take enough time to work kind of, on the business. They're really focused on the tactics and day to day getting stuff done. What are some of the things that you found have been really helpful to you, whether that be books or trainings or masterminds or things of that nature?
Yeah, so, right. And the small business development centers and the work that Mike and his team provide to entrepreneurs is great. In fact, I remember sitting in your business plan writing. I was probably 22, 24 years into my entrepreneurial journey, and I was learning how to write a business plan for the first time, or at least formally write a smart one, a good one, a well thought out one. You're always sketching things and spreadsheeting things and trying to figure it out, but to really get a formal education on how to do a business plan was very valuable. The other thing, through my relationship at the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center, I did sales training, Sandler sales training. I think that was a really valuable. I've been basically doing business development, and at some level, if you're in business, you're selling. I don't care if you're in customer service. I don't care if you're in accounting, or you're the CEO or the director of sales. There's a certain amount of selling your ideas, selling your concepts, selling your vision, or selling your products and services that need to happen. And I'd really been doing that, since 1990. But I did some formal sales training. I said, I'm still learning. I'm not an expert. I think that's important. You can't feel like you have it all figured out, because you'll think you'll have parts of it figured out, but you really, you need to always have an open mind and be a lifelong learner. So taking the sales training was a big deal. And then the other thing was, and I'm pretty passionate about this, and I provided some consulting services, and I help businesses kind of explore the power of Gino Wickman's book, Traction, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. I've been hired as a consultant and a few times to come into companies and help them do that. But basically what that is, if you haven't read it, it's a really simple, intuitive strategic planning tool that helps you kind of corral the tasks, the goals, the strategy, the forecasts. You know, it's almost like where your business plan that you architected in advance of tackling, you know, the sector of the industry you're trying to win. And it's like allowing that business plan to have a placeholder for where are we at, what are our challenges, what are our roadblocks, what are our action items, what are our goals, how do we measure up against those goals. So it's a way where your business plan kind of is in this evergreen, continual, you know, reprocessing. So it's called Traction, the entrepreneurial operating system. Those are probably the two biggest, you know, places where late in my career I really kind of upped my game and learned a lot and made a lot of progress as a result of it.
Yeah, I've read the Traction book. And I think it's really good, and I'd encourage. And again, it doesn't. I don't even think it really matters what your business is. Again, I think the concepts, the ways to look at your business, the ways to look at what you're trying to do that are explored in that book, I think are really, really strong. So I'd agree with you, and I encourage everyone to kind of check that out too. So let's think about, so you went from, okay, starting the business, being a founder, owner, you know, going through the typical first few years of growth. So other than, we've talked about the team and things of that nature, but what are some things that as you've transitioned into a much higher growth type business did you experience that, you know, maybe you didn't expect, or maybe you did expect, but you weren't sure, you know, what was going to happen with that?
Yeah, you know, the problem with growth is, you know, and this happens in a lot of areas of your business. It's a very tricky part of the world. It's, you know, they say it's a good problem to have, right? Because, you know, the opposite of growth is not good. But I always feel like, you know, I don't care if you're going from your 15th employee to your 20th or your 150th employee to your 200th employee, or from your second to your third employee, you always have, there's this delta between here's how much work we have, and here's the number of people I have to do the work. You're always managing this difference between how much bandwidth and capacity you have, whether that be inventory, product, human capital, you know, the people or the hours that you guys need to do the work that you do. And so you're always managing that delta. You're always kind of underfunded and understaffed. So that happens both on the staffing side and on the funding side. And so, you know, cash flow management and forecasting and budgeting become really important on how you manage the money. And you know, there's a lot of resources, a lot of help, and a lot of good people who can help you with that. And so being properly funded, getting the right infusion of cash, the right capital, investing whatever resources you have properly and correctly, you know, that's on the kind of the funding side. On the people side, it's, you know, processes and systems and technologies that help kind of maximize, you know, this number of people or resources that you have versus the amount of busy you are, the amount of opportunity you have. But you're always kind of gasping for air, either financially or from a labor standpoint, to get to that next level. And the faster you're growing, the harder that is, the more you have to spend time and energy tackling those things. One of the things for an entrepreneur at any phase, and you're not going to like this when you hear it, Mike will probably fight me on it, but I always kind of joke, but I mean it. When you're doing your forecasting, your planning, whether it be a new business or you're going to take on a new idea or go after a new market, double the length of time you think it's going to take to get there. And, you know, cut in half, you know, your projections for success. Meaning if you're like, oh, we're going to do X, you know, $1 million this year of sales, and we're going to do it in 12 months, I would say 24 months, $500,000. You know, you got to be really, really careful. What you don't want to do is build a really great car, build this really great machine that is your business, and then not have enough fuel to get it to the start line or to the finish line, or to underestimate how many laps you need to make to get to victory. And I think a lot, I always, you know, so when I'm forecasting and budgeting, I'm always doubling how long I think it's going to take, and cutting in half the amount of revenue, the amount of money, the amount of sales I'm going to be able to achieve in that time. You don't want to be so conservative that you miss opportunity. You don't want to be so conservative in your estimates and forecasts that it hinders growth. But I would rather hinder a little growth and be safe and know that my business is going to make it, and go in there. Maybe you got to double the amount of money you're asking for from the bank, or your SBA loan, or your friends and family investments, or the amount of savings you need to have to get this business going. It's really about just recognizing that and saying, all right, well, I've got to raise more money. I got to get more sources of capital to help do what I want to do. Because the last thing you want to do is spend any amount of money and find out, oh, we're only a third of the way there or 2/3 of the way there. Well, that doesn't get you anywhere if you can't get all the way home. So that's where business planning and SBDC's help in forecasting and business planning can really kind of help make sure that you're articulating what your market looks like, what are the different key strategies and elements you need to be analyzing, and then how do you properly fund that idea in a way that gives you the maximum opportunity for success.
Yeah, as you said, that's pretty much what we actually say in our business startup class. I mean, we talked about, warn people that everything's going to take longer than you expected. Everything's probably going to cost more than you expected. So
yeah.
As you're putting together your projections, you need to take that into account. You need to make sure that you have the funding, resources, whatever the case may be, to kind of move you through this and be realistic in what you're doing. So I think that you and I are actually on the same page with that. So that's exactly what we like to talk about. So given that, when you went to start either the first company, the lab, or as you transitioned into what your the Spiralight Benefits Group, did you have this acquisition idea in mind? Did you start it with this thought that I'm going to build to be acquired, or what were your thoughts in the early stages of kind of both?
Yeah, absolutely not. I had no appetite, interest, or designs on selling the company. They made me an offer I couldn't refuse. I'm grateful for that opportunity. But no, I love running my own business. I've had a lot of success and a lot of fun doing it. It's crazy hard work. It's a lot of sacrifice. It's a fair amount of risk. But you know what? I wouldn't trade it for the world, because you set your schedule. Now, granted, my schedule is 60, 70 hours a week, or was, right? I'm my own worst boss. Like, I would not want to work for me, especially if I'm me, I wouldn't want to work for me. But all that said, there's a certain amount of freedom of being able to set your schedule, decide when you're going to work, how you're going to work, what you're going to work on, right? That's very liberating and very fun. But so, yeah, no, I didn't go into it with any expectation to sell the business. I would say, my exit strategy would have been, and I encourage this for everybody, is you build a business to a certain level of success, you grow it and you scale it a little bit to whatever size that you feel is appropriate. And then your option would be either to sell that asset, to sell that success story to somebody else, which I did, or you build an organization that has enough people coming in, to help support, grow, lead, and move that on. You're building operators, you're building managers, and you're building an apparatus that can run without you. My vision probably would have been, I would hit, I'm in my early 50s, but I would hit my, mid 60s or 70s when I get bored or too tired or just not interested. But I would have, a whole team of people who would then just continue to run my business, and I would just collect the annuity. I would collect the profit and the paychecks off of what I had built, and I'm letting other people manage it. Now, how you do that, how you mentor them, how you find those people, develop those people, and reward those people and compensate them in a way that gives them incentive to carry on the next 30 years of your business when you're not in it, is a different type of hard. and that's kind of, that's one lesson I have. It's like every phase of your business is a different type of hard. It's a different challenge and a different opportunity to kind of solve a different puzzle. And so that's really what my vision was, is that I would build it and get it so tight and so well run and so well documented with really great people that I would just then keep fading off into the woodwork. In fact, when I sold this company, I told my team, this is like 3 years ago, I said, hey, starting next year, I'm going to take 1 day off a week, and I'm just not going to work. I'll be there if there's an emergency, but I'm literally going to come offline. And the year after that, I'm going to take 2 days off a week. And the year after that, 3 days. And eventually, I'll just show up to a monthly meeting or, quarterly meeting or whatever. That was kind of me getting myself as owner operator out of the equation and letting these people rally. But in the midst of that, I guess, I got approached by this company out of Atlanta who wanted to acquire us. The acquiring company is called One Digital. They're based in Atlanta, Georgia. Great firm, great culture. They really set me up for success. But yeah, that's how I would have done it had I not been swept off my feet by a venture capital firm.
Right. So what happens in an acquisition? I'm assuming they don't, like back in the old days with the Beverly Hillbillies, where they expected to roll up the wheelbarrow full of money into your door. What's your experience? What happens during that acquisition piece?
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you that story. So I was actually being a different company out of Texas had kind of really started the conversation. And like I said, I wasn't, when you build your own business, you kind of build a cash machine, and that cash machine throws you out money every year. Now you got to spend a lot of time building the cash machine. You got to service it, maintain it, and take good care of it, and love it, and nurture it, and have good people around it to protect it and keep it working smoothly. But I had no interest in getting rid of my cash machine that I spent so many years trying to build and get. But this Texas firm was looking at me, and then COVID hit, and the Texas firm got cold feet, and they were like, yeah, we're not in the acquisition mode anymore. And I was like, hey, I wouldn't get cold feet. I was like, when the market gets disrupted, and that's another kind of lesson. It's like when there's chaos in your market, it's a great opportunity for a hungry, innovative player to go in there and take market share. If the old guard has been doing it a certain way in your market, or then when that market gets disrupted, either from Amazon or from legislation or from the economy or from the weather or whatever it might be, your market is ripe for somebody who's innovative and hungry and hardworking to go in and take market share for yourself. And that was kind of my argument to Texas. I was like, and really I was only entertaining this conversation with the Texas company because I figured, well, I'm going to get a free valuation for my business. I'm going to get some market intelligence on what they're doing and how they might come into my market and change how I operate. And, if they acquire a bunch of companies within my area, that could change my competitive environment. And I wanted to, but I was also, part of me was like, hey, who knows, Well, they got cold feet. And then One Digital from Atlanta came in, and, it started with, they were just trying to figure out, did I have the right size business in the right market? And was my blend of, how I put my book of business together fit their needs? So they were kind of, seeing if I was a fit for what they were trying to do. And they were. And then I was trying to figure out culturally, would I even consider, partnering with you guys and being a part of your organization? And there was a lot of really good, strong cultural things going on there. And then, we signed a non-disclosure agreement, so I protected myself legally that they couldn't use that information or share that information. And I started providing my financials, basically QuickBooks export about what my sales and profit and those types of things were. And, they liked what they saw. And, the conversation, I think it was like, and because it was COVID, it was like on Zoom. I did literally like 6 Zoom meetings, from, the first one was a get to know you. The second one is, we like what we see. The third one is sign the non-disclosure agreement. 4, 5, and 6, we got to a point where they kind of shared with me what an offer might look like, or what they would be willing to pay for my business. And then the next phase is we sign a letter of intent, and so that letter of intent is kind of like, I'm going to open up they're basically going to go into what's called the due diligence phase, and they do a little bit more deeper, they're not just taking my word for what my sales are. They're not just taking my word for how many clients I have and how long I've had those clients and what my cash flow looks like, right? My QuickBooks, you can massage QuickBooks. And so they wanted to, come in, and that's pretty typical. They're going to go in there and kind of do a forensic audit of your organization to make sure that, and it's not very intrusive or adversarial at all. They're just trying to dot some I's and check, make sure some things, if I have this much business, but it's all 6 months old, then it may be evidence that business is fragile and not sustainable. If I've got this much business and it's been with me for half a decade, well, that business feels safer and better to them. So they look at those things, which the client loss, which we call attrition, what's the new business, how much new business am I bringing in? Because that's another thing, if I've had this much business for 10 years and it hasn't grown, well, that's great. But if they can see some incremental growth, then they're like, oh, good, that's what we're also paying for. There's upside to this block of business. So anyway, the due diligence phase, that took maybe a couple months. So we started conversations in June and we closed in December. And then regarding the wheelbarrow of cash, every deal is different and unique. But it's very important in my business for me to stick around and make sure I shepherd, nurture, and love my clients into this new culture, this new relationship that I feel very powerful and strongly about. That, they've got 3,000 employees. It's a really, really great company, a great organization. So, I had to go share that with my clients and say, hey, listen, you're not losing me. I'm not going anywhere. You're picking up all these great resources, and we're going to be here, my team. But yeah, so regarding the finances, I got 50% of the total value of the acquisition on December 1st, wire transfer. And then at the 1-year anniversary, which was December 1st of 2021, I got 25% of the value. And on December 1st of 2022, which is coming up, I will get the final 25%, assuming that I maintain certain measurements and revenue and some of the things and nothing crazy. They're not asking me to stretch my neck out. It was more of like, hey, let's just keep everything healthy, make sure it looks like what it's supposed to look like, 2 years in. And then at that point, I'll be free and clear to leave and walk away. Although this is a great company and they really do a good job. I think they've acquired 160 companies like mine over the last 15 years, and 94% of the principals stick around because they've got a good program and a good culture, and they're providing me new opportunities. Even though I'm not equity, I don't own it. They're providing me, new and different opportunities. So that's a decision I'll have to make when the time comes. But that's how it looked for me. The first company, Integral Sciences, the laboratory, the 16 times multiple of profit, or what's called EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, EBITDA, which is just a really big fancy word for your profit. They paid 80% at the time of closing. And then there's a 20%, what we call make good or earn out. I remember when we were negotiating the laboratory thing, this is kind of a cool story. There's this guy from, he was an Indian gentleman. The company that bought us was called Intertek, Intertek. They're traded on the London Stock Exchange, but they, he had said, we had these projections, and this is what our sales were, this was what our revenue looked like, this is what our profit was, and this is kind of where we were going over the next 2 years. So I'd kind of mapped out what our future would look like, and that's why the multiple I got was so high. I was like, because this is where we're going, and this is kind of what I'm gonna. And I remember he pushed back and he's like, "You really think you can hit these projections?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think we can do it in our sleep." And he said, "All right, well," he basically wanted to put a huge amount of the acquisition on the earnout, which, instead of paying us 80% when the deal closed, he wanted to pay us 20% when the deal closed and make us earn, or prove the other 80. I said, "Hey, listen," I said, "I don't want to, I'm already a competitor of yours. That's one of the reasons why you're acquiring me. And I don't want to, be in business with a competitor. Like, if you're going to put all of this on the earnout, if you're going to, make me prove all of this, my track record should speak for itself. But if you're going to do that, then it's not going to be good for the culture, because I'm going to be basically selfishly and carefully making sure that my segment of your business is thriving. And if that may be at the expense of some of your other divisions or what have you, it just doesn't feel like a good fit if you're going to acquire me and then make me adversarial to the rest of your organization. I don't think that's what you're trying to build. I said, why don't we do this? Why don't we not do the acquisition? And why don't we come back in a year and you can see that I've hit these projections in that year. Now, if we do that and I hit those projections, the multiple and the number we're talking about are going to change considerably, meaning they're going to go up, because I will have just proven what, and he basically said, no, you're right. And he just backed all the way off, and he just had a little 20%, just to make sure we didn't, quit or start a new company and transfer all the business in or whatever. So there's just a little bit of an earn out there. So anyway.
Yeah, well, cool. That's I think it's interesting, because again, a lot of people, aren't going through that, and it's kind of interesting to hear how that works. So let me shift gears a little bit. So your daughter was in the Young Entrepreneur Academy program that Chaz runs, and she was named the top graduate, I believe, at 12 years old for her class.
Yeah.
Do you find it easier watching her attempt to grow this business, or watching her in a track meet?
Watching her to what?
In a track meet.
Yeah. Oh, watching the track meet's way harder, because it's not as interesting. That story. So, Chaz, through the Young Entrepreneurs Academy, which is just I remember watching those kids go through it. At the time, it was, 30 weeks in a row, 3 hours a week. It was like 90 hours worth of study. And they're talking about revenue and profit, cost of goods sold, and expenses and variable expenses and fixed expenses. And I was like, honey, if I had known that when I was your age, I would have ruled the world by now. So it was a program from 12 to 18 year olds, where they basically, the first 10 weeks was about business ideation, like what's your idea, what's your branding, what's your website called, more of just the idea. The second 10 weeks was the business plan, modeling these, forecasts and market size and sales projections. And then the final 10 weeks was like kind of the go-to-market, like trade shows, Shark Tank pitch. And so, it was just really amazing. My daughter had a little healthy vending machine idea that kind of like the modern lemonade stand, but, in a vending machine. And it was great. It was a great way to connect with my daughter, a great way I learned a lot through watching her go through the process. So, and Mike was one of the mentors, and obviously Chaz is involved, and they helped my daughter kind of go all the way to nationals with that program. And anyway.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun program. And again, if you have children, anybody's watching this, and you want to get them into a entrepreneurial kind of training experience, again, reach out to Chaz Fertel, because again, he is the expert on this, and he would be a great person to talk to.
Yeah, and apparently they're streamlining the cadence of that. I don't think it's 30 weeks anymore, so you can kind of like slim that down and get that in a much quicker, accelerated format. So
yeah, I just saw Chaz put the camera on, so you may want to say something here.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in. Like I was saying, we started out by having 30 weeks of classes, and then we shrunk that down to about 20. And through COVID, I think we just learned a lot of things with the attention span of students and that kind of thing. And we were missing a lot of students that wanted to participate, but because of 20 or 30 weeks of classes, they couldn't do it because of a sport they were in, or the arts, or whatever conflicts that they had. So we had a lot of great talent, a lot of great interested students that couldn't participate because of that. And so this year I approached the YEA organization out of Rochester, New York, and I said, hey, I'm not going to participate in your program anymore from Central Ohio, because I want to do something different. I want to still teach what you teach, okay, but I want to structure it differently so we can be more inclusive, that more students can participate. And after I explained to the lady that created it, and runs it, she says, Chaz, I love your idea. Let's keep talking, put it together, what you're wanting to do. And she goes, we may add that as an offering for all of our other, locations that are doing this as well. So we're putting that together, and I'm going to be working with Mike with SBDC on this. I've contacted Matt's daughter to see if she'd be willing to participate, to give her feedback on maybe some of the changes that we'll incorporate, as well as some other graduates of the class. And there again, just trying to make it more inclusive and allowing more students to be able to participate. And then they can drop off along the way. So I'm trying to create a program where there's a lot of information in a first day's event, and then people can drop off and say, okay, well, this isn't really for me. And then we're whittling down over about 4 events to the real core of people that want to keep moving and do like Matt's daughter did and compete the class. So we're excited with what we're going to create for the new class.
Great. So again, reach out to Chaz if you have any questions on that, or if you want to kind of get on a list to potentially have your children participate. So Matt, I've got 2 more questions I want to ask here, and I want to kind of dive into, you talked a little bit about this earlier, but I want to dive into this a little bit for those that are watching this. You talked about masterminds, kind of peer-to-peer type of training, different things like that. So, my experience with that, it's different than, hey, I'm going to go sit in a class and have somebody talk to me about what they need to do, lecture type format. But what was your experience, with this peer-to-peer? Talk a little bit about kind of what it is, what you learned from that, and how maybe the folks that are on here might be able to apply something like that to themselves.
Yeah, I remember the quote. I'll probably get this wrong, but Andrew Carnegie said that the greatest gift you can give is the gift of direction. Again, that's like, someone else has already paid tuition to that mistake. You don't have to make it. So I was involved in a group called Vistage Worldwide. There's also one called EO. The DEC has put on certain ones. I'm sure SB, the Small Business Development Center, has some of these types of things. But let's talk about what it is. So a mastermind is where fellow business owners get into a room. In my format, we were meeting 1 day a month off-site for the whole day to work on, and really you're working on yourself as a leader as much as anything. But some formats are different. Maybe it's once a month for half a day, or it's 1 hour a week. Masterminds can take different formats. But basically, what the power is that you're dealing with, there might be a home builder, there may be a retail person, restaurant, there may be a, engineering company, a painting company, a law firm, you're dealing with an architecture firm. So you have all these different business owners at different phases, different stages. But what happens is that you basically are processing through challenges or issues. So I might show up and say, hey, listen, I'm really struggling how to attract and retain talent. I can't find the right managers to help me run my business. And so they ask you a lot of probing, you don't rush to solutions. There's a lot of probing questions. What have you tried before? How would this impact your business? Tell me about this. What about that? How much are you paying? The last 2 people who didn't work out, what went wrong? Why did that? How are your systems? What's your onboarding like? What interview questions are you asking? There are all these great questions come in. And then the group kind of, group thinks, comes up with a solution. They make recommendations after, a 30-minute fact-finding, questions only. They start making suggestions. And then, it's just a really great, and even if you're not the one who's problem solving something in your business, just hearing and participating in someone else's problem or journey, whether it be cash flow or, needing building space or bank financing or whatever. So it's great because you learn from other people's struggle, and sometimes you're providing value to them, but more often than not, just seeing that process and being a part of that process is going to teach you something about yourself and your business. And it's really about a good way to grow yourself as a leader. That was another big takeaway from the mastermind. It's not about these blocking and tackling and mechanics of your business. That happens and that's important, but it's about, we always, one of our jokes was always, the problem with your business is you. The reason why you can't find the right manager is because you as the leader, you're micromanaging, you're not documenting your systems properly, you're asking the wrong questions, whatever. So there's a combination of blocking and tackling and solving real business problems, and the other, looking at yourself as a leader and how you can grow, how you can advance and take things to the next level. So masterminds have been really, really powerful and important to me.
Yeah, and I think those are really good, because again, it gives you that additional support. You're not kind of on your own per se. So, if you go to a training class, we have great training classes at the SBDC, but you're kind of, sitting there and you're kind of, hearing the lecture maybe, or you're maybe working on something specific to your business. But what this does is that it creates that kind of network and that kind of support. So I think that's really important. And I encourage everyone to think about these types of options for them to learn and build their knowledge base and their network for their business. So I've got one more question. This is the last question. So Matt, what do you think? So for the folks that are listening to this, what's one thing that you would recommend that they do between now and midnight tonight that could have an impact on their business based on your experience?
Get help. Call your nearest therapist and ask, get help. Whether that be calling a mentor, reaching out to Mike and getting some support, helping him help you develop your business and get a plan together, building a board of directors, joining a mastermind. Just start making part of your daily and weekly routine, reaching out for help. That's it. That's what I would do between now and midnight.
That's great advice. Great advice. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Matt, I want to thank you for participating. I think this has been great information, and want to wish you the best success going forward. And also want to thank the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center for partnering with us on this program. I think it's a great partnership that we've been involved with for apparently the last 13 years. I know it's been a long time, and it really helps, I think the entrepreneurs, grow their business and find some good support and this help that Matt talked about. So with that, again, thank everybody for attending. Thank everybody for watching. And we look forward to seeing you on Small Business Breakthroughs next time. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody. See you.